Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Isaiah and today I am looking at one of my least favorite Bible passages ever, which is commonly referred to as the Proverbs 31 woman. It is Proverbs 31:10 through 31, if I'm remembering correctly off the top of my head. Um, what I can say about this before I get into it too much is, again, I grew up South Baptist and I got to hear a lot about the Proverbs 31 woman, who can also be called the Proverbs 31 wife, because that's all women are good for in the church, is becoming wives, right? Where they're not their own type of people. But I was socialized as a girl growing up, so I got to hear about this a lot, especially once I entered the 11th, 12th grade girls of the church, of the youth group, as well as through the main church, because it seems like when there are Sunday services for Mother's Day, as there are every year, the only passage people can go to for womanhood and motherhood is Proverbs 31. Don't know why. I guess we save all the Mary stuff for Christmas, but it's something I distinctly remember we would have this conversation about Proverbs 31 and what it meant to be a virtuous woman in God's eyes. And it was always through that. Always talking about that, always talking about being a man's helpmeet or helpmate, which essentially means you you're supposed to be helpmates to each other, but the women basically have to uplift the man, take care of the house, take care of the children, make sure they're all staying in line, while the man is making sure his family is also staying in line. It's like a hierarchy. It's supposed to be God on top, and God just doesn't give a shit. And then the husband is supposed to be the symbolic leader of the house and sort of be symbolically Christ himself in comparison to his wife, and his wife is supposed to make sure that the kids are staying in line, and it's just the kids get nothing, because you can't make a goldfish in a bowl that's going to die in 2 weeks because you're not taking care of it. You can't make sure that goldfish is staying in Christ. It's a goldfish, so the kids get nothing. What's really insidious, I think is the right way to say it. What's really, really creepy, in my opinion, and really telling of the whole what do women get to hold on to, what is a good role model for women in the Bible. There is a ministry. When I went to look up the actual verses to read, I got linked to proverbs31.org, and it is a ministry that is solely dedicated to helping women. Like, when I click on their learn more, they're like, we offer a wide variety of online resources to meet the needs of women who sometimes feel alone, women who need hope more desperately than ever, women who are trying to figure out how to align their lives with the truth of God's word. We want to walk with you, no matter where you are or what stage of life you're in. And then there's stuff like, sometimes it's difficult for me to connect with my church. Okay, well, here's our online Bible community. I would love to find encouragement in my email, since I have to check it every day. Okay, here's some daily devotions that can get emailed out to you on the daily. Sometimes I'm intimidated when I try to open my Bible and I don't know what to do. Here's our app. I would love biblical encouragement when I'm getting ready or I'm out in the car. Here's our podcast. I have a calling to write or teach. Well, here, you can be part of our ministry. Like, they call it the Proverbs 31 Ministries Compel Training, which compel is not a word I would like to use. But it feels gross to be on this website and see how they're like, hey, are you feeling alone? Are you unsure? Let's just fill up your hole with this crappy, crappy Bible section, because it's not a single verse, it's several. And sorry, I am trying to pull up. There it is. trying to pull up the actual verses so that I can read them because, unlike Christians, I like to leave context. And in this case, we are in like the very last chapter of Proverbs, if I'm remembering correctly. Again, I'm not double checking this part, but we're at the end of Proverbs, and this chapter 31, is called Sayings of King Lemuel. And I'm honestly going to read the first 9 just because it's a fucking riot. Which is the sayings of King Lemuel, an inspired utterance his mother taught him. Listen, my son, listen, son of my womb, listen, my son, the answer to my prayers. Do not spend your strength on women, your vigor on those who ruin kings. It is not for kings, Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, not for rulers to crave beer, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed and deprive all the oppressed of their rights. Let beer be for those who are perishing, wine for those who are in anguish. Let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. So what's going on with that? Like, why is this up here right before we get into talking about what makes a virtuous woman in God's eyes? Well, first off, we have this king, Lemuel, who is repeating some stuff his mother taught him. So clearly, she's the one that tells us this poem that comes after. But she's just like, listen, kid, don't waste your time on women. They're just going to suck all your energy out of you and leave you in ruins. And it's like, cool, great start, hating on your own sex. And then she's like, don't drink, don't become an alcoholic because it's just going to fuck everything up. Which, okay, fair. She's like, let the poor people who are sick and needy drink because it makes them forget their suffering for a while. And then she immediately turns around and is like, but don't forget, you also got to speak up for these people. And it's like, well, I mean, he is a king. Is he really going to do all that much different rather than maintain the status quo? Because, I mean, let's look at history. So, yeah, I guess the poor and needy need that alcohol to forget that they're kind of never going to be put into a better place because the people in wealth don't want to get out of wealth. And the last couple lines sounds like just oh, wait a second, I probably shouldn't have just said that. Let me finish it up with something that seems really poignant and perfect, even though you're a king. You're probably not going to think about it all that much. But no, the real meat of this is the epilogue, which is verses 10 through 31. So I'm going to have a bit of reading to do. The fun fact, I'm looking at the New International Version on Bible Gateway, and they have a little note about here down at the bottom that says that the verses were an acrostic poem, which means like every verse starts with a successive letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Just pretty neat. Like, translations ruin a lot, and in this case, it ruins a really cool poem aesthetic. Not the meat, but the aesthetic of the successive letters is pretty cool. So, let's stop dilly-dallying. Verse 10. A wife of noble character who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies the merchants with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. So, I'm going to let that sink in for a second, especially the part where the person who wrote the poem kind of just says, don't worry about beauty because it goes away anyway. So it's fine if you're ugly. All the other bitches are ugly too. Always fun. Always fun. So, what the hell is this saying? Well, let us see, because I am kind of struggling a little bit to know where to start. So, we have a lot of stuff laid out here. A lot of it is no longer quite as applicable. For one, we in the West, at least, don't tend to make our own clothing or have the chance to buy a vineyard. And we definitely don't tend to use a what is it? The thing in Sleeping Beauty. Because she has the distaff and the spindle and she can turn the wool into thread. What is it? A spinning wheel? I have to look this up because I am stupid. Prick her finger. It's a spinning wheel, right? Spindle, needle, spinning tools. Okay, I don't know. I'm going to call it a spinning wheel. If it's wrong, let me know in the comments, and I will not come back and re-record this because this is going fantastically right now, right? But even though this stuff isn't like totally applicable to the modern day person, we can still get some feedback on this. I'm going to close the Proverbs 31 thing. First off is the fact that a virtuous woman, a vigorous woman, whatever you want to call her, what does it call her at the start? A wife of noble character is faithful. So she serves God with all her heart. It's mentioned down near the bottom that she loves the Lord, and she fears him, and thus because she's like scared of God, she is totally way more beautiful than all the people that don't. So that's a very important one, is faith, and that's one of the things that they'll get onto you in the Mother's Day sermon is to be a virtuous woman, you have to be faithful in God. Otherwise, why would they be talking about this? It could be just an old 50, well, it is, never mind. But if you are in church listening to this on Mother's Day, the first thing is that you have to be faithful in order to be a virtuous woman. Marriage, like we start off with the fact that she's a wife. Her husband is not worried about her doing shit. He has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm. She's not going out and cheating on his ass because he's fucking a lazy idiot. She is not bad-mouthing him behind or in front of his back. She makes sure that everything is going good so that he's being talked about well. So yeah, another big thing is marriage and faithfulness to your husband, because the only way that you can be a good woman is if you're married, and if you're married to a dude. One of the reasons why I was so scared of sex as a child. Oh, another thing. You can only be a good woman if you are a mother. There is a lot about motherhood in here, which is why it's get used in Mother's Day. From the fact that she's the one that clothes her kids. Her children call her blessed because she's always working so hard to make sure that they're clothed and fed, and her servants are fed. And for some reason, the merchants get sashes. I don't understand that one, honestly. She also makes sure that everyone around her is healthy. So, like, her husband is mentally, physically, spiritually healthy, though we know that really the mentally, you can shove that aside. No one really cares about your mental health in the church. They just tell you, oh, don't worry about it. And then you're like, okay, how do I not worry about stuff? Because that's in my personality. And they're like, oh, if you're worrying about it, you're not having enough faith in Jesus. And I'm like, cool, now I have a complex that I don't have enough faith, so I'm not going to get into heaven about that. And I'm still anxious, but this is actually just making my anxiety worse. Cool. But yeah, you are also supposed to be healthy, and people will throw in the mentally healthy as well. That's why she is able to laugh at the future, sure. But the mothering thing also with the speaking with wisdom, instruction on her tongue, you best is better bet it's not going to be against her husband. And then there is the fact that she is a homemaker. She is always working. She is able to make things more populous than before. I think the last thing I read was Zacchaeus. There was a mention of the turning the a minus into 10 gold coins. Like a minus is a gold coin, just taking one gold coin and reproducing it. Again, we see the idea that if you're not doing with the things that you're given, then you're not doing enough and you're going to get cast out. You're not a good woman. You're not a good wife. You're not a good mother if you're not every day making something more than what you were given. And the fact that she's always working so hard. She's up in the morning before the lamps are lit for the day. She is making food. She is tending to a vineyard. She's doing all this homemaking stuff, making sure her kids are behaving. And I mean, outside of the fact that not all women want to be mothers or be women, when you look at how I was raised and me being a trans man, but not all women want to be mothers. There are people with physical and mental and intellectual disabilities who end up struggling with being industrious, being productive, doing something every day, making something more of what they were given. Like, for instance, personal note, me, I'm struggling a lot currently. I'm not working as a groomer currently because I had a mental breakdown in September. And right now, these daily vlogs, they're not much, but there's something that kind of makes me feel like I've done something for the day. I've done something with myself that isn't just depressing. And I think I'm doing this in part because I still have that wired need to do something every single day. Otherwise, I feel like I've done nothing. Breyer also deals with this, where if they don't feel like they're being productive, then it's a waste, and they can get their head twisted in a really weird way of, if I don't do XYZ, I don't deserve to eat. That's an issue, and that's something that got drilled into us by our parents, by our church, all of that stuff. It's not good. There's, of course, the fact that the homemaking, not every woman wants to be a homemaker. Not every man wants to go out and work. Some men just want to stay home and take care of the household. Why is that so bad? But you can't be a virtuous woman unless you have created an inviting atmosphere of warmth and love and food and just take care of everybody in your house. You use your homemaking abilities to then evangelize to other people. Like that's what it gets down to, is you are constantly having to go and tell other people about how great your God is and evangelize. Otherwise, you didn't turn your one gold coin into 10 and you can just go off. But yeah, that's what it is. They use, if you are a girl growing up in my church that I grew up in, and you were having issues, it almost always went back to the Proverbs 31 wife. Are you anxious? Well, don't be. Just don't worry about it. The Bible says don't worry about it. It's in God's hands. If you have faith in Him, you're going to be great. Insecure about your looks. Oh, well, you're going to be beautiful because the God's light will shine through you and your beauty will last longer than people who aren't Christian. What am I going to do with my life? What's my future? Oh, well, obviously, if you're going to be a spiritual woman, you can use your womanly talents to be productive, support your husband, have children, and make a home, and then use all of this to tell other women how to live their life and tell them that the only way that they're going to get to heaven is to go through God and become a homemaker and have children and be a wife. I realize I'm probably not doing the best at dissecting this. I am not pulling up resources explaining why these things are wrong. I can only look at this as someone who was raised in it and feel frustrated because the wife in Proverbs 31 is an incredible person. It's someone that I can see why women would want to aspire to be like her. She has a husband who she is faithful to. He's apparently a good man. He's respected by the city. She has children that are well behaved enough that they recognize and call her blessed. They're also spiritual. They follow her lead. She's able to take care of the house, but also take care of a business of her own and have her own earnings, which is unusual to get to see. Most of the time when people are talking about the Proverbs 31 wife, they kind of gloss over the fact that she has a vineyard that she collects profit from. She's constantly working. She's mentally healthy. She's spiritually healthy because she has her faith in God. So I can see why this is such a roadmap for women in Christian churches. It's just, it sucks because it alienates women and girls who don't want to follow the stereotype. And there's just not very many examples of womanhood in the Bible. We mostly have this and Mary. And I mean, Mary was a kid that got knocked up by the golden rain or a goose or a bull or whatever, you know. There's all those stories of Zeus fucking girls and having children. And now that I'm secular and an atheist, that's very much how I see Mary. So there's just not very many good examples, and the examples that we have is a young girl who has an immaculate birth, and then she just kind of fades into the background. She's not important. And then we have this virtuous woman who does all of these things. She is Superwoman, and it's just not feasible. And not even just in today's day and age. I can't imagine any woman can look at that at any age, any faith, and be like, I am exactly like this person, because we all have bad days. And really, that's why I wanted to talk about it, is because I look at this woman and I still feel engulfed by anxiety and worry that I'm not going to be enough. Even though I'm not even a woman anymore, I am a man. I look at this and I just remember how much emphasis was put on this. But, okay, I think I'm done rambling. I am going to talk very briefly about some other things, but don't worry, you can log off if you don't give a shit. We've had a couple fish die in our big tank. I think it's from the ick, but things look like they're clearing up out there, which is a positive. Everyone's super hungry and aggressive when it comes time for food. And I just medicated it again today. I am excited because I finally did an acrylic pour properly, so now we're just waiting for it to finish drying. I heard it can take 24 to 72 hours for it to completely dry, depending on how thick your acrylic paint is. My goal is to eventually screen print on top of it, which will be fun. And other than that, I don't really have many updates. This week has been kind of a struggle so far with being productive. Oh, I have finished my script for my first longer form, more carefully edited video, which will be coming out hopefully in a couple of weeks. My goal for that series will be one video every 2 weeks because it's going to be way more in depth. It's probably going to be like an hour long. We are discussing writing, and specifically through the lens of reading through some of the worst books out there, the most notorious ones to make fun of, and we're starting with Empress Teresa. It has 28 chapters, and it gets wild real fast, so look forward to that. If you are still watching, well, thank you. I really appreciate it. We have over 20 people subscribed to my channel now, which is exciting. And if you like the idea of talking about writing, dissecting the good and the bad and the ugly in bad books, and you or you like just listening to me talk about whatever, because I want to do more of this atheism dissection stuff through the lens of one individual, well, I would love it if you subscribed. And also would love it if you guys gave me name ideas for my green tiger barb, because he is doing well. He's not fighting anybody in the tank. He is very energetic. I'm going to try and get a video of him to post on TikTok. And if I manage that, I will leave a link down below. Otherwise, I hope y'all are doing okay. Stay hydrated. Gonna go get a drink of water for myself. And I will see y'all tomorrow.